about inspiration today. So here's what happened. Because y'all know some things happen to me, and then that's what ends up being the subject or the topic of the Rutledge Perspective that week. And so, because Jerry P. Beasley challenged me and thought I wasn't going to do it, I ended up planting my garden, right? Y'all saw my pictures of my garden. And my spinach is like growing gangbusters. It's crazy. From seeds. That's the thing that's growing the fastest is my spinach. I got sprouts everywhere for my spinach.
Did you show that?
I did. I put pictures of it. I'm going to take some more and post them again. I'm so excited about this spinach. But here's the thing. Me and these squirrels in Houston are having a problem, right? And so I ended up having to, because they were digging stuff up, and I actually transplanted my cucumbers because I didn't realize they were vining, so I bought another stand-up garden. I've spent way too much money. I am on restriction from any gardening store. I'm just saying. So y'all, help me help myself. So I moved my cucumbers and replaced them with some bell peppers in the other thing. And I'll be dang if I didn't come out about an hour later and the squirrel had actually uprooted my new plant.
You lying.
I was hot, H-O-T-T hot. And I thought, no. So I replanted it. I sprayed some little stuff, which seems to have worked for a little while. But as I went to this gardening store the other day, they're like, yeah, the squirrels in Houston, it don't take much. All they got to do is smell something once. And they don't like it, but they realize there's nothing around, and they'll be back. So I'm like, okay, well, we're going to have to up this game. So I went to Home Depot, and I bought the screen, like window screens, and I have screened in all of my planters. So far, so good, although I didn't put anything around my blueberry plant, so I got to go do something about my blueberry bush. And that's getting all kinds of leaves and everything, too. But as I was going through that day and getting so frustrated and finally, putting everything together, blocking everything out, making sure it still had the sunlight, I read this quote because this quarter, y'all, has been, the first quarter of 2021 has been insane. And I don't know about y'all, but I have been tired. I have been, good morning, Nancy. I've been pooped, right? And that whole idea of being able to dig deeper into sitting into your purpose. And every time I get tired, every time I think, well, this is it, I need to be done, something happens. Somebody says something, somebody does something that says, Laurel, this is what a faith journey looks like. And normally if you give up, you're giving up right before the breakthrough. So just make some adjustments, but hang tight. So I am making some adjustments, but hang tight. And so I was looking at some business stuff and doing some meditation and all of that, because I sat for Monday, Thursday at 1 a.m. Friday morning. I always sit vigil at the hardest time for me, which is as soon as it gets dark, my brain goes dark. So I have to sit middle of the night as my show of what it means to have set up. And as I was doing all that meditation and coming back home and all this kind of stuff, I saw this posting, and it was by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And it said a bunch of stuff in the beginning, but then it was talking about goals and what you're trying to do and your vision and all this kind of stuff. And at the end, it said, you're not tired, you're uninspired. And I had to sit with that. You're not tired, you're uninspired. And I thought, now, that's something to think about. Because the first thing we often say is, I'm so tired. I don't have any energy. I just don't want to do it. I mean, and all those things may be true, right? Because we talked about that whole polyvagal theory, right? The dorsal, the sympathetic, and then the ventral vagal. And when you're in that dorsal in particular, you're just tired. That's the I can't, right? You're just tired. You don't have any energy. It's that freeze, right? Sympathetic is fight or flight, but that dorsal is freeze. You just don't want to do anything. You don't have any energy. You don't want to be bothered, which my issue is there are a lot of times I don't want to be bothered. I love doing this stuff with you guys, and I love engaging with people, but it takes a lot of energy. And so there are times when I just need to kind of go to ground. And when I heard this about you're not tired, you're just uninspired, I thought, you know what? We talk a lot about inspiration and who inspires us. And so my posting yesterday was, to inspire is a gift. To be inspired is a treasure. But to inspire oneself, therein lies the magic. And what I meant by that is, We often look to external sources to tell us it's okay. We look for external sources to give us boost, to give us energy, to give us wings. Now, some of that is true and some of that's necessary because we are communal beings, right? They've been writing a lot now, and we talked about it this morning in this group I'm in. This whole wellness and mindfulness challenge right now in the middle of the pandemic, and because it does still feel like we're in the middle. But this whole idea of us needing touch, right? And needing connection and how much touch impacts us, right? Just having that hug, just shaking that hand, just that leaning into someone. That touch is really important for us as beings. And so, if you think about that inspiration, and we talk about everybody else who's inspiring us or somebody else where we're getting inspiration, or those things are real. What quote did you read? What book did you read? What are the things that really pumped you up and said, I can do that? And we've talked about the fact that someone's always watching. Someone is always watching. So you never know who you're going to inspire, and you may never know who you've said a word to that was the turning point for them. That's why they say always be kind. You never know when that one word is the turning point for somebody. But what we don't often do is seek to inspire ourselves. That self-reflection. Here's what I'm really good at. Here's what I can deliver to the world. Here is, based on feedback, social proof that, no, this really does impact people. When someone does tell you you impacted them, what do they call it? A brag book, right? Make your own brag book. How can you spend some time inspiring you? Because those external things do happen and those are important, but when those go away, then what happens? If you can't find the book, if you can't find the person, if you can't find the podcast that really helps you, if you can't find whatever it is, what are you doing so that you have your own well of inspiration to draw from? And it's not that it's easy, because it's not easy, especially when you're in that mode of tired or fatigue or whatever, and what you really are is uninspired. It's hard to dig into that well and get inspired and inspire yourself, especially if you haven't practiced that, because you're so used to the external support, the external proof, the external validation of what you're doing. It's hard for us to dig deeper into our own well of possibilities. And that's what inspiration is about. Inspiration is about possibilities. I had the other thing that happened, and this is how I also know when I'm talking about the right thing, when it's kind of divinely downloaded. I have a mentor that I've known forever. He gave me my very first HR job. And I got a text from him not too long ago that said, hey, I'm going to be coming in town. I'm going to be here for several months. Can we get together? I'm like, oh my gosh, we absolutely got to get together. And so we got a chance to have dinner last night. And I got to tell you, it was so inspirational. It was so much fun. One, the food was great. We went to Perry's. The food was great. Perry's Steakhouse and Grill. It was fantastic. But just being able to spend that time with someone who has such an amazing heart, amazing spirit, a value system that is mission first, but people always. That you meet those people that you just align with and you learn so much from. I think it was Lisa Nichols said, when she was starting to do something, she found the people that know what they were doing, and all she wanted to do is sit at their feet and just learn, just be poured into. And now she pours into others. And so this person just poured into me. We happened to be at an organization, and I was doing a different role. And I'd actually decided I was going to leave this organization because I'm like, they're paying me an awful lot of money to really do nothing. I'm not learning anything. I'm not really contributing because they're not really ready. It was kind of at the time lip service, which wasn't unusual for the kind of work that I was doing. It was very difficult for people to understand this kind of enterprise risk management work. And there was a level of intestinal fortitude that needed to happen for people to have the discussions that needed to happen. And so I was in the presence of this person on a somewhat regular basis. And they came up to me one day after just thinking and said, have you ever thought about HR? And he told me last night, he said, I don't know what it was, but there was just something about you that I said, she would be fantastic in HR. And this is a person who said, I look for great business people because I can teach you the HR stuff, because the HR stuff isn't complicated. It just needs somebody who can think well and who can be compassionate but not emotional, right? Who can make really tough decisions but always keep the people in mind, right? Mission first, people always. That's why I always say to my HR people that work for me, you got to be a business person first and an HR person second. Because if there's no business, there's no jobs. So nobody has a job. You can't take care of anybody if the business doesn't exist. And so at the end of all this whole meeting, as I'm telling this story, at the end of all this whole meeting, he sent me this text at the end because we were just making sure everybody made it back, right? Made it back home. And he said, Laurel, it was so great, and you are just such an inspiration. And I had to really pause on that because I don't think of myself as an inspiration at all. In no way, shape, or form. I just do what I do because I don't want anyone else to feel like they've lost their mind, to feel like they're crazy or they're not worthy or what have you. And so, and I sent back to him, I'm like, no, you are the inspiration. And the fact that he used that word confirmed again for me that this whole idea of inspiration was an important thing, important conversation to have. Because we don't know who we're inspiring or when we're inspiring them. We don't know who we're touching. And when we are touched, how often do we reach out to somebody and say, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. You really, really impacted me. Like I said, when I watched The Black Godfather, I immediately got on and sent a note to Clarence Avant and said, I just need a minute. I just want to sit at your feet because you are such an inspiration in how you network, how you connect, how you succeeded and overcame, and you just did it. You just did it. And not that it wasn't hard, and not that there weren't challenges, and not that there weren't things you had to overcome, but you just found a way. How often do we go to those people or write those authors or those people that we interact with and say, thank you for inspiring me, for letting me know it's okay, for letting me know there's an opportunity, for letting me know that I don't have to give up, for letting me know that it's possible. All things are possible, right? And so if we're not even taking that time to do that to other people who have inspired us, if we're then not taking the time to make sure we're reaching out to get inspiration, right? We are certainly forgetting to take time to inspire ourselves, to do the self-care that nourishes us, that whole root system we've talked about, that nourishes us so that we can show up fully and 100% and on our game and authentic, that word that's overused, and transparent and real, that we can show up as all of those things because that's who people need. The person who needs you. They don't need somebody else's version of you. They don't need somebody else's definition of you. They need you. And if you are continuing to show up, if you are feeding you, if you are inspiring yourself, whatever inspires you, if you are inspiring yourself and that enables you to show up, then that means you are available to that person who is also looking for inspiration and looking for support and looking for somebody who just gets it, and can tell them without telling them, you're good, you got this. Because all of us need to hear that every once in a while. Just, you got this. You got this. No, you got this. I talked last week about someone in my empowerment village who responded about being so upset with herself because of a disability. She just said it was a disability and how she knew it wasn't her fault, but, she still felt guilty. And in my response to her, I'm like, I ended my response to her with, you got this. And her response back was, I needed to hear that. While I know it, I needed to hear it. And so to me, I didn't do that to get a response. I did it because I meant it. I'm listening, I'm reading her comment and I'm thinking, no. Been there, done that. You are not responsible for this. And words matter. And the words we tell ourselves and those tapes that play end up getting really deep. And we start to believe, just like I say, go and do your research about these House bills and the Senate bills. Go read it for yourself. I actually pulled them down before I got here so I can go read through every line so I can go out and see exactly what's in there. Make sure that you are doing your research. It's the same thing. When we hear those stories, I was talking to my therapist yesterday, and, when we hear the stories in our head, every story has a different angle. So again, a story that says here's this situation, and this is how great, this is what you learned, this is how you impacted. That same story says, man, I don't know, that was a risk. That was a risk. That wasn't a safe thing to do. And that same story says, yeah, you can't handle that. You absolutely cannot handle that. You just need to, if you just go to ground, if you're just quiet, maybe they'll leave you alone. All three and everything in between, right? So every situation, our nervous system has a story about that safety that is or is not true. But if we're sitting in those spaces where we're uninspired, where we don't have any energy, because inspiration is at that ventral vagal. I like to connect it to that. That's at that ventral vagal, that energy zone, that, no, I got this. This is good. I can make an impact. I am doing good work. This is feeding my soul. It's making my soul sing. That top of the ladder, right? But all those other pieces are where we are uninspired. And if we are uninspired, we cannot inspire someone else. And leaders, this is really important. Because when you are a leader, and remember, leader is about behavior, not about position. It can include position, but leadership is really about behavior. If you're in that leadership position, part of your job is to inspire other people. To inspire them to be the best that they can be. To inspire them to acknowledge and be aware of any gaps that they may have and have the energy and the drive and the support to bridge those gaps. Or to decide, to have the strength to decide, that is not a gap I can close, nor is a gap that I want to close, and therefore I've got to make a different decision. Leaders are about inspiring people to show up as they are every single day, to be able to deliver their gifts to the fullest extent. That's what leadership is, about inspiring people. And if you yourself are not inspired, if you cannot dig deep into your own well, how are you going to inspire anybody else? Now, there's a certain place where, that whole fake it till you make it, which I think we've all done at some point in time, where even if you're not feeling it, you do feel a sense of obligation or desire to do the right thing by someone else. And so you just show up. You keep showing up. You keep showing up. You keep making it happen. And you do it the best of your ability. That is real. That is real. And sometimes you got to do that until you can do more, until you can do better. Right? We do what we got to do until we can do what we want to do. And sometimes we got to just keep showing up until we can show up in a way that feels good. Because life isn't always going to feel good. And those people that are always constantly in joy, I'm in awe of them. They are constantly in joy. But joy is also a choice, right? Just like they say, love is a feeling, but love is a choice. So those people who are constantly in joy, they're always happy, they're always on it, they're always engaged, they're always, you never see them struggle. There's two things about that. One, I will not claim or deny that what they're doing and how they're showing up is not real. Because there are truly some people who live in that space all the time. Dalai Lama, right? Gandhi. They live in that space all the time of joy all the time. And they also have their moments. They just know how to deal with those moments in a way that brings them back to joy, probably quicker than some of us who don't have as great a coping mechanism. That doesn't mean they don't feel grief. They don't feel sadness. They don't feel heartache. They don't feel pain. It just means their ability to move through that and cope through that is different. And the way they like to show up to the world and the way they do show up to the world is out of joy and out of service. And there is something to be said for the words you use, the way you show up, your attitude, right? Having an attitude of gratitude. And your altitude is only lifted by your attitude or something like that. I always get that wrong. Your altitude is a function of your attitude. So you want to make sure that as you're showing up and how you're showing up, that you are able to inspire others because you yourself are inspired. Do you go garden? I mean, that garden, I'm telling you guys, I am still stunned that this thing that Jerry P. Beasley made me do is making me so happy.
Encouraged you.
It made me do. Words matter. Shamed me into doing.
That's it.
Have you done it yet? Because you know you committed on the show to do it. See, shame. But the whole thing about it, though, is one, because I think through so much stuff, I can think myself into or out of anything. It's just the way I'm wired. I can logic my way into or out of anything. And this forced me not to do that, to just feel, right? To put my hands in the dirt, to see the plants, to look at the roots, to see the growth. I mean, it is a different level of connection. It inspired me to remember, right? Because for me, the way I inspire myself is to remember who I am and whose I am. That's how I get inspired. To remember that I do have gifts that matter. To remember that there are things that I'm really good at. And yes, I'm kind of weird, but that's what makes me me. That's what makes me me. And that's what enables me to do the things that I do. And that inspiration came through, putting this galvanized bed together that took me forever. But I love it, right? Just the joy of having it done. And then filling it with 6-7 freaking bags of potting soil. And then trying to decide where I was going to plant stuff and what I was going to plant. And seeing, I'm telling you guys, this spinach thing is just giving me so much joy.
I bragged about it. I lied and said, did you show pictures? But I was hating. I bragged about that, and I bragged about your wicker.
Yeah, the wicker one. Yeah.
I'm like, oh Lord, I gotta get it. I'm
right.
not copying, but I'm
right.
Because I hadn't seen that.
Yes, so that's a new one.
That one inspirational thing that you did by going ahead and doing the gardening, it spreads to other people because I showed that to my sister. I said, look what Laurel did. Look at her spinach already. So she got inspired.
Yes.
So it works.
It works. It works by showing people that it's possible. It's all about possibilities. By showing people that it's possible. But we have to start with our own inspiration, our own gut, our own heart, what is making our souls sing so we can show up. And if you can't find it, or if you're having trouble tapping into it, that's where your village comes into play. We talked about the village. That's where your village comes into play. That's where you lean on those people who are telling you, you're okay, it's okay, you got this, we're going to make it work, this is just a moment, this is just a point in time, this is not forever, you are amazing, you're incredible, all of that stuff you need to hear to get back to your own inspiration. So, of course, now I'm looking at all these other seeds and thinking, okay, I don't have enough room in my yard to put all these beds up I need to put up. Because now I got tons of seeds, and since I see these other seeds are doing so well, I'm thinking, well, I need to plant some more spinach, and how about some lettuce and some, greens. And now that I know, so far, knock on wood, that this screen is working to keep the little squirrels out,
I love that.
I might actually, you know what? That's what I'm talking about, y'all. Creativity. Dig deep. Creativity. I had not ordered my little greenhouses from Amazon. There was something in my mind that was not letting me order the greenhouses, mainly because I couldn't find ones that were tall enough and all that kind of stuff, because the planters are at least 3 feet tall, and then you put your stuff on top of it. And I said, but there's got to be something. And I was going to get some bird netting. But the people at Buchanan's, and let me tell you, if you want to really get into planting, and they did not pay me for this, they're not asking me for this, these people don't even know who I am. That Buchanan's nursery on 11th Street in the Heights, y'all, you need to make a trip. And they're knowledgeable and they're kind. Look.
They got good flowers?
Woo! Flowers, trees, shrubs, vegetables. You want it? They got it. From succulents to ferns. I mean, it's all kinds of pots. So anyway, it's just, I'm like, maybe they need to pay me because I'm giving this advertisement.
Right.
But I went there and I was like, I need some bird netting, right? Because I'm inspired now. My stuff is growing. I don't want to have to shoot somebody's squirrel. And I'm not going to feed them because I refuse to become the squirrel haven in my neighborhood. So I got to do something because they are hungry and they're thirsty. We had this snowmageddon. I mean, it's a problem. So I went there for the second time and said, okay, I'm going to get some trellises for my climbing cucumbers, but I'm also going to find a way to cover these so they're okay. So I talked to the people and they're like, yeah, no, we got a squirrel problem in Houston. I'm like, well, what about the little owls? He said, no. I said, they don't work? He said, no, they work, but you got to move them at least every other day. And then once you keep moving them and they finally figure out that they're just moving and they're staying still and they're not real, then they don't matter anymore. I'm like, well, dang. And I said, well, what about the bird name? They said, no, they'll rip it. They said, the squirrels in Houston are gangster. They have gotten to be so resourceful that you're going to have to find something else. So, necessity is the mother of invention. I went and bought some screen, regular window screen. I wrapped that stuff around and got my stapler out of my office and stapled it together.
That's what's over there?
That's what, it's screen, like window screen.
God, that stuff look bold.
No, it is bald. I bought the screen.
You made that home?
Yes. Big rolls, 36 inches by 84 inches. And then, of course, after I spent all that money, I saw something that was bigger. But 36 by 48, I just wrapped it around and stapled it together.
The student has become the teacher.
I'm just saying, that's what I'm talking about. Inspiration. Inspiration, because the squirrels were not going to win. They were not going to win. And, and I'm not one for poison and stuff and all that, because then you got dead squirrels. And I just can't, y'all. So, but the point of all of that, the point of all of that is this. You never know where your inspiration is going to come from. And therefore, you don't know when something you are doing is going to inspire someone else. You got to keep showing up. And find that thing that makes your soul sing. Find that thing that makes you happy. Find that thing that reconnects you. Because like I said, I don't dig in the ground. I don't dig in the dirt. Because there are bugs in the dirt. I don't dig in the dirt. But I'll do some potting soil. I will do like house plants and stuff like that. And so when I found these raised planters, and not like those wood ones that the first level's on the ground, 2 feet off the ground. I want to stand up and plant stuff. I'm not trying to get on my knees and plant nothing.
Where you get those from?
Walmart, where I don't shop.
The wicker ones that you got, that brown wicker one?
Yes.
That's from Walmart?
All 4 of those are Walmart. All 4 of those are Walmart.
I like it.
Yeah. So I can't, and I was like, here's where it is. I walked in, got my stuff, and got up out of there because I can't. It makes my nerves bad. So that reconnection to ground, to something real, to something earthy, to the fact that there is life in everything. There's a reason my logo is a tree, because trees regenerate, right? You plant it, you plant a seed. You get a root system that starts to grow. You get the shoot that starts. With a strong root system, you get a strong trunk. With a strong trunk, you get amazing branches that fruit or flower or leaves or whatever. And then as the cycle goes, all of those things fall off, but they fall to the ground. They degenerate and they go back into the soil to regenerate again. It's just like my mother has 3 rose bushes in front of her house. She had a pink, a red, and a yellow. And they were right next to each other. Well, over the years, the red got really, really deep. The pink, actually, you ended up with some that were deep fuchsia. Then you had light pink. The yellow ended up with still some yellow, but then they got some that were kind of reddish orangey, right? Because they were all kind of cross-pollinating. So seeing that regeneration manifest in even changing of colors, y'all, it is powerful. It is powerful to understand that if you continue to feed your well of inspiration, not only are you feeding you so that you can feed others, you are regenerating yourself so that you can show up stronger, better, faster, more knowledgeable. You owe it to yourself to do that. You owe it to yourself to find your inspiration. When you are sitting in that puddle in the middle of your bed saying, all I want to do is lay here and Netflix and chill or just cry or whatever, do that. Honor yourself. We got to feel those feelings. Those are important. And then find a way to get up and keep moving. Find your inspiration. My next thing is getting these golf lessons going because Jerry ain't going to embarrass me out there on the links.
I'm still going to embarrass you no matter how many golf lessons you take, because I'm good like that.
See?
But Lauren, you said something. You said a whole lot that is powerful. Right now, when we talk about being an inspiration to other people, then you talk about there are people who are saying that I'm tired, but you're really not tired. You're not inspired.
You're uninspired.
And even though you may enjoy what you do, you may need a infusion of some type to get you motivated. And when you come on Tuesdays, I get motivated. When we had our new guest that came here, it inspires you. When I saw the big thing that was in the back room that I didn't even know was here, I got another pep in my step. But do you think that you get the most tired when you're the closest? to seeing everything you work for come to pass?
You know what, Jerry? I think that's probably true. Many people have said that. If you listen to people who have a great success story, almost to at least the ones I've listened to. So I don't want to claim that I've talked to everybody or listened to everybody or read everybody, because I have not. That would just be a lie. But the ones that I have listened to or talked to or read that have a story of success, there was always a moment where they were like, I'm done. Clearly, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm in the wrong place. This is not meant for me. And really that everybody gets to that point of giving up. Everybody gets to that point of giving up. And it's only those who really push through that get to reap the reward or the harvest of the seeds that you've sown. And part of the inspiration when you talk about inspiring yourself, and that's one of the things that I've had to do, because, again, I'm going to be honest here and transparent here on the Rutledge perspective, because it's me. It's one of the things that I've had to really dig deep in this quarter. I have sown so many seeds over my lifetime, and not just in this business, but when I've worked with people, when I've talked with people, when I've supported people. And that's not about me. I was doing what I felt was the right thing to do. And I have to remember, as part of my inspiration, that I have put out, you get back what you receive what you give out, right? You get back what you've put forth. And I had to remind myself, you've put out some good stuff. You have sown some amazing seeds in service. And so it's important for me, for my inspiration, it was really critical that I remembered that I have done the work. I've done the work. Now, is there more work I could do? Absolutely. Are there times when there was work I should have been doing and I was just tired, or rather uninspired? Because the more I evaluate in hindsight, it was really about inspiration, not about fatigue. The lack of inspiration manifested in significant fatigue. But it started with it being uninspired. And so it's important to dig deep and understand what is inspiring you. And if you are in that fatigue and you realize that you are uninspired, that also goes back to something we talked about way early, right? Which is, if something really continues to feel bad, also pause and say, okay, am I just misaligned? Is this really just truly not what I'm supposed to be doing? Because sometimes something feels so bad for so long because it's not right. It's just not the right thing. They're not the right person that you should have added to your team. It is not the right product you should have done. It is not the right meeting you should have gone to. It's something is misaligned. So part of that, looking at your well and making sure you have your inspiration, is being willing to be really honest and evaluate what it is that isn't feeling right, what it is that's putting you in dorsal vagal, that freeze mode, that I just don't have any energy. I just can't. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm done. What is driving you to that? Because if you know what that is and why you are feeling that way, that's my favorite question, is why. Why are you feeling that way? Then you can figure out what's going on and what you need to do about it. It's funny. As adults, we tend to stop asking why as much. And you have all these authors that wrote all these books about why. What is your why? Find your why. Getting to why. Why? And I believe in why. The 5 whys of root cause analysis. And we don't tend to watch a lot of it. We don't tend to ask as much. But if you think about kids, that's the one question that they don't have a problem asking. Why? Until they get that because I said so, right? And even then you might still get one more why. So if you're not feeling inspired, why are you not feeling inspired? And what can you do to inspire yourself? What can you read? What can you build? What can you grow? What can you plant? Who can you talk to? Right? What can you do actively to get re-inspired? Because you can't always rely on someone else to inspire you, right? Sometimes you got to do your own inspiration. And like I said, this gardening, part of it, when I look at that holistically, because you got to know you. You got to know you. And I've told you guys, when I was young, we would come here to Houston to visit my grandmother, and my mom would take us to Toys R Us when we got in, mainly because she's like, I got to get them something so they'll leave me alone. And I always got a model car. Always. That's what I wanted, was a model car. And I'd sit on the dining room table and I'd have this glue that smelled to high heaven, and I'd pull apart all the little pieces and then put them back together and look at the instructions, and I loved it. There's something about that mind-eye process coordination that just works for me. When I look at how it really helped me to start doing this gardening, one, I had to decide what to plant, so that was a process. Then I had to find some elevated beds, that was a process. And then the one I found, you had to put it together. Well, that's a process. So I'm sitting there putting this thing together, trying to figure it out. How's it going to work? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to put it? And so that had my brain and hands connected, that hand-eye, mind-body connection. And then the satisfaction of putting everything in there and planning out where it's going to go and making sure it's watered and paying attention and all of that kind of stuff really did serve to feed that inspiration, right? That, I'm still capable of doing a lot of stuff. I actually enjoy gardening. I just don't enjoy digging in the ground. That's where the bugs are, is in the ground. So it's not the dirt that's the problem. It's the bugs that are the problem. So we just got to get real, right? So now I can see, beautiful flowers, and I bought baskets. This is why I'm on restriction, because I was just supposed to buy a screen, but I saw these baskets, these hanging baskets, and they just had to come home with. They just jumped in my basket, Jerry. I'm telling you, they grew legs and just jumped right on in.
But Laura, when you said that you're on restrictions, you can't go to another nursery, I felt that, because it's dangerous if you're trying to budget.
It is a problem. So now I'm on restriction from Target, and I'm on restriction from garden centers.
Target ain't gonna move you. What's that Target?
See, the problem with Target is you walk in for one thing and you spend $200. I've got a problem with Target. So I'm on restriction. So I need help, y'all. Pray for me. Because I'm on restriction.
Here, and she's a gardener too. Everybody's getting into this garden bug. And as you said, it is encouraging.
Yes.
It's doing other things to your mind. But while you were talking about the things that you're growing, and I'm looking at the spinach.
Yes.
And I'm seeing it grow, and you said they come from seeds.
Yes.
We overlook the seeds because the seeds take so long.
Yes.
But when you said that you have been sowing and sowing and sowing, oftentimes the seed doesn't sprout up when you think it's going to sprout up. And it doesn't oftentimes sprout up where you planted it.
It doesn't.
It may be somewhere else. Even as you're doing this show, I'm thinking of the audience, and I'm thinking of the people around the world that are listening to you.
Yeah.
And you may be planting the same information into somebody familiar to you.
Yeah.
Who doesn't receive it.
Right.
Could that make you tired? Because I talked about casting your pearls before the swine.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so here's the thing. Yeah, cast ye not ye pearls before swine, right?
Yeah.
Lest they turn around and rend you. The only reason I remember that is because it was also in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. So let me just,
Okay,
we just got to be real, right? Let's just be honest. Because I get so much stuff in my head, and I'm like, but yes, I think sometimes we try so hard, and I know I'm guilty of this. You try so hard to make sure people understand. You want to explain. You want to cajole. You want to help. You want to aid. Sometimes you just got to let that go, because not everyone. So let me be kind. There's a couple things. On the one hand, not everyone needs your message. Not everyone is worthy of your message. I don't mean them worthiness as a human being, because we all have worth. But it is not worth your time to give your message to everyone. Number 2, not everyone is in a position mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically to receive the message that you have. Right? So sometimes it's about timing. Yes, Jenny, I love those meditation gardens. In fact, that was the next thing I was going to do. So that's why I'm on restriction. Because those are the ones with the sand and the rocks and the, problem. So I think we've got to remember, when we're talking about inspiring people and we're talking about the messages we send and the seeds we're sowing, one, you're not always going to see, like my spinach growing so fast, you're not always going to see it, because I did buy plants as well as seeds. And some of the plants, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got new leaves. I can see them. But some of them are growing slower. So I'm like, okay, is that another millimeter today? Because I just want to make sure it's not dead. And the same thing with my orchid. Orchids grow so slow. I'm like having a conniption. I'm like, is it dying? What's going on? So we don't always know, and we don't always see the results of the seeds we sow. We don't. You don't know who's watching. You don't know who's watching. You don't know whose life you turned around just because you said something. because they heard something they needed. Y'all know I get inspired for this show and for my podcast by something I've read, something I've heard, something I've experienced. And it comes usually in 2 or 3 times. Something will happen. It'll happen a couple of times. Somebody will say something. I'm like, yep, that's what I need to talk about. Like I said last night, my mentor at the end of the day was like, you're such an inspiration. I'm like, see, I was going to talk about inspiration. That's what I posted. That's what I need to be talking about. And so don't give up on the seeds that you've sown. Some of them aren't going to fruit. Some of them aren't going to bloom, because not every seed that you sowed was actually meant to be harvested by you. It may have been meant to be harvested by somebody else. That person that you hired, right? You may not get the benefit of all of their career, but somebody else may get the benefit of how great a leader they turned out because they passed through you.
That's good.
You know, so not everything, not every reward do you see. And so if you're in it for the reward, that's not about leadership. That's about ego. That's about ego. And ego gets us in trouble. If you are a leader, that means you're serving. You're serving other people. You're helping get things done through other people. You're helping other people get where they need to be. You're inspiring them to be the best they can be, to deliver what they need to deliver, to meet the goals and expectations, theirs and that of the organization. And that's not about you. But if you're so worried about what people say about your team and whether or not people are going to perform, and that comes out in how you manage them and how you talk to them, that's about your ego. That's not about the person. Because if it was about the person, you're able to have a conversation that connects their behaviors to outcomes, not their character to outcomes. Because their character ain't got nothing to do with you. But their behavior does. Because that's what you're paying them for. You're not paying them for character, you're paying them for behavior. Now that's different. We vote for people because of character, although we often get it wrong, apparently. Okay? So, what is your inspiration? How are you making sure that you are inspired so that you can inspire others? So that you're finding a way to recognize that you have planted seeds all along the way. You have sown seeds. How many teachers, because I got some teachers on here. Good morning, Odessa, Texas. My sorrows. How many seeds have you planted with students? Right? I have so many teacher friends who are like, oh my gosh, I had a student come back that I taught years ago, and they came back and said, here's what I'm doing now. Thank you so much. You don't know how much of an inspiration you were to me. If we think about people who truly inspire, teachers are in one of the best positions to do that. The teacher, think about your schooling. That one teacher who said, you're okay. That teacher who said, you can do it. That teacher who probably gave you the worst time, but also pumped you up the most. Because remember, everyone who dumps a load on you is not your enemy. And everyone who picks you up and dusts you off is not your friend. So that person who gives you the hardest time for your good may be the person that you need and the person that inspires you. And so I know there's so many people who are like, man, my student came back. I hadn't seen them in 30 years and look what they're doing. Right? And it's such a good feeling. And so you've got to find that way to inspire yourself. What inspires you? And for me, I'm telling you guys, this gardening thing came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere. So much so that, again, I'm on restriction. I need y'all, if y'all see me post another picture that was not something that was already in pictures before, we're going to have to do something. I'm going to have to put like $1 in a bucket.
You're going to post it because you can't stop.
I can't.
And I'm not going to let you stop because I'm going to be posting and provoke you to go get something.
You know, and that's not right, Jerry. Because, you know, Jenny just posted, you know, gardening a form of meditation. Well, see, now I'm like, I need a meditation garden.
But you messed me up with that pop-up thing. Because all I see is a meditation. It was already going to be a prayer garden.
I'm just saying.
That pop-up thing.
I'm just saying.
You better stop.
You know, now I'm thinking sand and rocks and succulents and, you know, mesquite. You know,
I'm glad because I was nosy looking at the rest of your yard. I said, man, that's the she shed. You talking about, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Did she just put this? I'm all in your
See?
backyard. So.
No, it's incredible when we are open to what inspires us. when we are open to being quiet, when we are opening to just receiving what's meant for us, it's incredible what we will receive. And as I said, it has been a tough quarter. It has been a really, really tough quarter for me, trying to remember why I'm here and why I decided to do this, and remembering that I am making an impact. And again, as Jerry, you said, is it that fatigue, that being uninspired, like right before the breakthrough, right, is the worst time. The worst time you have is right before the breakthrough. And I'm like, yes, but does it have to be, 40 years in the desert? Does the downtime have to take that long before you get the breakthrough? And we never know when our breakthrough is going to happen. But trying to continue to push through, and not even push through, because that's not fair, because that's, again, words matter, right? And that's part of our problem. Hustle, grind, push, drive, all these words and tones that we use that make us seem less than if we're not able to do it, which is unfair, because we all have issues at some point in time. But having a village, having people that are your support system, having people that are your rock, having people that are your inspiration, having people that are your peace. When your mind is messy, having people that can help you get unmessy. And using that thing, taking a suggestion from someone else, and just trying it. I mean, because honestly, I've been wanting to do some kind of gardening because I really wanted to, you spend so much money. I'm like, maybe I'll just grow my own cucumbers because I love them. I'll just try it. We had a garden when we were little. My grandmother had a garden here in Houston. I'm like, let's just try it and see. Can't do tomatoes because they do tomato worms, and I'm not doing worms. I can't do it. So, but I did peppers and everything else. But doing that, and even as I got ready to buy the seeds and everything, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like doing this. But then Jerry guilted me by saying I made a commitment, and of course I don't want to go back on my commitments. Yep. And so every once in a while, someone will talk us into something that we really don't want to do. But when we do it, the reward is so amazing. Those parties we don't want to go to. I was talking to my mentor last night when we had dinner, and we were talking about hating to go to these parties. And he's like, yeah, you're like my wife. She's the same thing. That whole small talk and just chit chat. I hate it. I just hate it. It's so superficial, and it just drains my energy. But it's also important that you go to those things, because it's not always about you. It's about what other people see in you. It's about the connection to other people. And so you just find a way. I have a podcast that talks about you have to go to the party. Go find it. For my introverted friends, yes, you have to go to the party. I think that's the name of it. And one of the things I say is, you got to know you. What inspires you? What inspires me is small groups, right? I have really close, tight-knit groups of people. I have lots of acquaintances, but I have really tight-knit groups of friends who know me well and know when I'm kind of done, and they don't make fun of me. And when I go to something like that, I work the room. I either decide that I'm actually going to work the party, because then I don't really have to talk to people except when they come in and leave. Or I go in, I get my tonic water or whatever I'm drinking, and then I'll work the whole room for about an hour. And then I leave. And the reason I do that is because I know about an hour is about max for me in those kind of settings. But because I've worked the room intentionally, I get another good hour that people are like, oh, well, I saw her over there. Oh, I saw her talking to somebody. They don't know, right? You just sneak out. But you got 2 hours worth of press for an hour worth of time. Mm. On the other hand, there are times when I'm like, man, I don't want to go. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. And I go, and it was like the best time I've ever had. A dinner, right, to go to. Or not last night. I was really excited about my dinner last night. Or an event that you don't really want to go to, and you're tired and you don't want to get dressed. But you go, and it ends up being the best thing you've done, because it renews your spirit. And that's what inspiring yourself means. Inspiring yourself means remembering that you do have gifts to give, that you are amazing just as you are, and you're enough just as you are. And you inspire someone every day. You don't know who's listening or watching. You inspire someone every day. You get inspired by someone every day. I mean, even if you don't realize you inspire somebody else, think about how much you get inspired every day by some little things. But to inspire yourself, that is the magic.
There was a preacher that came on once. He said, most people get caught up at looking at the 200 instead of focusing on the 50 that are supportive and consistent. And we're so undone about the 150 that we can't get to be inspired, instead of putting all we have into the 50, because the 50 goes out and tells other people
Absolutely.
how inspired they've been. When you talk about inspiration, we got a first-time listener.
Oh, yay,
Sharice,
welcome.
Singletary is on this morning. When you talk about being uninspired, when you have a project or something, you can't allow other people who may not know your why cause you not to be inspired, because there was many times I've had to do productions and try to go get sponsorship, and they were like, no, this don't look right, this don't look good. But then I felt, like, God. But all of a sudden, God makes the resources come, because as long as you stay true to your why, will you get to your destination?
Why is my favorite question. And yes, Lisa Nichols always says, don't be upset when somebody doesn't get your vision. God didn't give it to them. He gave it to you.
That's right.
And so you want to, that doesn't mean you don't have people around you who challenge, because you want people who are going to keep you from doing stupid stuff, right? And by being challenged, it will either confirm, like really strongly confirm your conviction, or it'll give you something to think about where you may need to adjust. Doesn't mean you need to change, but you may need to flex. All feedback is feedback, y'all. All feedback is feedback. Take the stuff that makes a difference, and the stuff that doesn't, ignore it and keep moving. Or the stuff that's hurtful, just keep moving.
And you do have to evaluate, is it worth it to you?
Is it worth it?
It has to be worth it to you to even take risk in anything that you do.
Absolutely. And as I was talking to my mentor last night, we talked a little bit about assessments, and we talked about that on the show, and I may have a bigger show on that too, about assessments, because they are often used as weapons, which is really bad, which is why I don't promote a lot of assessments. But he said, and I was telling him, I said, the thing about assessments is it's just a piece of data. And he said, yeah, he said, Laurel, the thing is that it just will tell you who you are. Assessments are not good or bad. They are you. I'm like, exactly. They tell you who you are and how you show up. And they give you an opportunity. If there's something you want to be able to do and the assessment says you've got a gap somewhere, it gives you information and opportunity to make a change. Or not, because you have freedom to make a choice. But the assessment is just information. The assessment is not judgment. And the problem with assessments is people turn them into judgment. But the assessment is an innocuous tool. It just is what it is. It's just information. How it's utilized is where the impact comes. And that impact can be good or bad. It can be helpful or hurtful. So go out. It's about that time. So go out this week and find your inspiration. What have you done for you to inspire you? I don't mean, and maybe that is, part of it is going out and doing something, reading something, going to a movie, something that's going to inspire you. But what is your internal inspiration? Your why is your internal inspiration. Why are you doing what you do? Why are you continuing to dig deep? And if you've had a quarter like I've had that has just been a freaking nightmare, and you're exhausted and you're tired, and you're in that dorsal vagal where you feel like you just don't want to do anything, you're just frozen, and then you start to beat yourself up about what my problem is. I was working hard for everybody else. I can't work hard for me. All that head trash, all that mess. Think about what The Rock said. Are you really tired, or are you uninspired? Because if you're tired, then do something about that, right? Get some rest, regroup, regenerate. That's important. That's a part of self-care. Mental, physical, right? Emotional. You got to rest. You got to rest. But if it's not that means you're uninspired. So how do you find your inspiration? Because someone out there is waiting for you to show up as you, with every gift that you have, everything that you know, because they need you. And if you're not able to show up, that means you are not able to serve, and they aren't getting what they need either. And a real leader knows it's not about you. It's not about ego. It's about that person who needs you and is looking up to you. All right?
Laura, wait. When you said, because many entrepreneurs think like that, I was working harder for somebody else and I can't hardly work hard for myself. Could it be because the fact that you were working for somebody else, you didn't have all that pressure on you? The pressure was really on the company, on the leader, to succeed, stay open or not, but it was easier to work for somebody else. When you're working for yourself, you have a lot to think about. You've got, make sure the bills are paid, people are paid, this is done. So could that be the cause of some people thinking, I'm not working hard enough when I'm working for myself?
You know, in some cases it could be, because it depends on what you were doing, right? So if you were working for somebody and you were an individual contributor, or you were a level of supervisor, you know, yes, there was a lot of stuff that you're having to think about a lot more now. If you were in a senior executive role, I was acting as an entrepreneur. All the stuff I was thinking about there, I'm having to think about for me, right? So it depends on kind of what that role is. I think the difference is, unless you bought a turnkey business, your support system looks very different. You know, it's not so much that there's more stuff you have to do. It's what stuff is that you have to do. Do you have a computer that works? You don't have tech support, right? I was doing something with a client the other day and Microsoft Teams wasn't working. And she's like, man, Laurel, she said, you know, it just hit me. I'm in a company. All I do is call my IT department. Who's your IT department? I say, Apple. Apple, right? But it's that kind of stuff, I think, that drains you. The tactical stuff drains you. And when you're drained from the tactical stuff, it makes the other stuff that you really need your energy for, the inspiration, the vision, the mission, the stuff that takes more creativity, it makes that harder. Because the tactical stuff, we think, oh, that should be easy. That's just making my computer work. That's just plugging it in. My phone should work. You know, all the stuff that just should work, because you got batteries and you're plugging it in, it's just supposed to work. So when that stuff starts working, it makes everything else harder. It makes everything else harder. And the first thing that goes is our belief. Let me rephrase that. One of the first things that can go is our belief in our ability to get it done. Because everything, once one thing starts failing, it feels like everything starts failing. That's not always true. That's our head, right? That's that dorsal vagal, or that sympathetic, where it's fight, flight, or freeze, right? That's the story we're telling ourselves. Man, now I'm gonna have to get a new computer, and that's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to get a new mouse, and I gotta get a new. Do you really? Or do you just need to wait a minute? Pause. You might have to fix something, but do you have to change everything?
Can I do a quick assessment on you real quick?
Yes.
For the listening audience. A year ago, you've been here a year.
Yes.
Okay. What did I tell you when you first came? You were looking like Shirley Caesar.
Right.
That tickles
Yes.
me. Okay, so look behind her and look at this picture, the sassy. Got that stanky leg guy, got that leg and that hands on them hips.
And y'all can't see my boots.
An incredible amount of weight. She is gardening now. She's getting her hands in topsoil and she's going shopping for plants. That's been in a year, Laurel. So even with the natural things, you have to think of the progression that has happened, even with the radio show, the podcast, the 5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 downloads. Woo!
So when you think of that, you gauge that. And as you said about the, my friend calls it an attaboy file. You call it something else.
Yeah, the brag file.
But she said you got to keep an attaboy or a brag file.
Yes.
Because you got to look back at your own changes or what you brought to the company. Because if you don't, most people won't tell you.
Right.
And then the ones that really are confident will tell you. But if they don't tell you, you can look at that file.
Exactly.
So you got that file behind you.
Yeah.
You got the fact that you're in the dirt. You've got faithful listeners that are eating from your plate.
Thank you, guys.
And being built up. So that's my assessment.
Thank you. Yeah, I love this. And y'all, especially new listeners, you know, this that I'm here was divine download. Because Jerry wanted me starting this in December of 2019. And I was like, no, let me think about it. And then I talked to my village and they're like, you've lost your mind. You need, that's absolutely a yes. And when I gave her back a call in December, I said, if you still have an opening, you know, I'd love to do it. And we talked in January and I was on in March. And so, you know, it was, and I had put out an intention that I was going to be more visible. I was going to be more visible in 2019. And the show showed up in August of 2019. The opportunity showed up in 2019. It launched in 2020. So again, when I get those seeds where I'm like, oh, it's taking so long. What's going on? I've been doing this forever. What's the problem? Where's the breakthrough? And I just thought about that this minute. I have to think about that. I said it in January of 2019. The opportunity didn't show up until August. I didn't receive it until December. And it started in March.
Then there was a global pandemic.
So it was a year. It was a year for it to manifest. So I'm speaking to me too, y'all. Sow the seeds. Believe that you have sown the right seeds. Nurture them. You know, water them. Believe in them. talk to them, play music for them, something, and be patient, which is not my superpower. Patience is not my superpower, but I'm learning. And when you're ready to give up, find the people that help you keep moving. Find your village. All right. It's been real. Thank y'all. Love you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back again next week. Go download it, Texans. Go download Senate Bill 7 and House Bill 6. Get educated and call your representatives. There is no such thing as voter fraud. You need to vote. Votes count. Votes count. See you next week.